Hey everybody, this is Mark with North Star Aero. So today I'm going to talk about, as you saw last time on the last video that I posted up, I did a video on the new drone that I bought. So DJI Phantom 2 Plus 3.0, fantastic, love it. The video is phenomenal. It's great. I've been really happy with it. So, you know, my goal, as I said on the video, was to get it and be able to shoot video for real estate. I'm a real estate agent as well. You know, I can shoot it from a plane, but it's so much nicer to be able to do it with the drone. You can get tighter shots. You can do a lot of cool, you know, cinematic things with the you know, flying around the property, and it's just really neat. So, you know, I thought that let's just, you know, that's what I wanted to use it for. That's why I bought it. So I went out and bought this, and unfortunately, I didn't really start thinking about anything outside of, you know, as far as regulations are concerned that could come into play with this until after I bought it. So, you know, I wanted to go out and shoot some video, and I got to thinking, you know, especially as a pilot, I'm a commercial rated pilot, so I'm like, well, let me just call the FAA and see, you know, kind of where we're at with the drone stuff. Are there regulations that I need to be careful of? You know, I'm a commercial rated pilot, so there can't be anything, you know, around that. It's got to be just, you know, worst case scenario, I'd have to, you know, I don't know, put an entry in my logbook. I don't know what you'd do. So, you know, that's what I was thinking anyway. I mean, you know, I've got 4,500 hours, you know, multi-rated, you know, commercial instruments, CFI, CFII. So I've been around airplanes, been flying for 15 years now. So I was like, you know, we're just talking about this little thing here. I'm just going to go fly this around, take some pictures of people's houses. So, you know, not a big deal. So I call up the FAA, and I'm in North Carolina. So I call up the Charlotte FSDO for non-aviation guys, FSDO Flight Standard District Office. You're going to have them around, usually there'll be one in the bigger cities around your state, like we have one in Charlotte, Greensboro, I think there's one in Raleigh. So they basically just, you know, that's kind of your go-to point if you live in that region to get information about, you know, regulations or, you know, noise problems or things like that. So I called up the FAA and, you know, had some correspondence with a person at the Charlotte FSDO, and she was fantastic. I mean, really helpful, you know, kind of explained, you know, what needs to be done, where they're at with the whole process. Told me I had to apply for an exemption for commercial use. What? Yeah. So in order to use these for commercial use, you can't just buy one and go fly it around. So what you have to do is you have to apply for a commercial exemption. What does that mean? Well, we're going to get into that as far as the regulations are concerned. So I told the lady, you know, I'm like, okay, I understand. You know, if somebody's not a pilot, you know, they should have some kind of training. I mean, you know, as a pilot, we know the airspace system, we know where the airports are at, we have an understanding of, you know, the whole system, how everything works. As a non-pilot, I understand, you know, people wouldn't understand the airspace, how that works, the weather limitations, you know. So classes to become familiar with that, not a bad idea. You know, maybe do some kind of little, could be online certification or something, at least so everybody's getting the training in. So I said, surely, you know, since I'm a commercial rated current pilot, you know, I shouldn't need to do that. And she's like, well, to be honest with you, I don't know. You know, honestly, the only way I know to do it is with the exemption. But let me put you in contact with somebody else that may be able to answer it for you. And I said, okay. So I called this other person who's very familiar, another FAA person, very familiar with the they call them UASs, drones. And, you know, I talked to him about my situation, what I'm looking to do. You know, I'm just using it for pictures, my own pictures. I'm not even starting a business taking pictures for other people. I just want them for my listings. Commercial rated pilot. He says, well, that's fantastic. You know, it's awesome that you're a commercial rated pilot. You understand the system, how all that works. All you have to do is apply for your exemption and you're good to go. I said, seriously? You know, a commercial rated pilot, I can go get an airplane, 6 people can pay me to fly them around, and, you know, I can fly them across the country, but you're telling me that in order to fly this thing and take pictures, I have to have an exemption. He says, unfortunately, yes. Awesome. So that's where this whole thing started. So what the purpose of this video is, first I'm going to rant for a while about how pissed off I am about the whole situation with the drones. Then after that, I'm going to go through the process of talk a little bit about how to get your exemption. If you want to get an exemption for commercial use, how you go about doing that. Then I'm probably going to rant a little bit more, and I'm going to go through some stuff from some exemptions that have been put out that other people have applied for and got. And at that point, I might fall off the wagon and really start ranting. Once you hear some of the requirements that they're requiring you in order to pilot this thing for commercial use. So, and keep in mind, this is only for commercial use. You want to go fly this thing around your yard, crash it in your neighbor's house, they'll be pissed, but you're not breaking any FAA regulations. As long as you're using it for hobby use, they don't care what you do. Keep it under 400 feet and go fly it around. So this is only for commercial use. So you want to make money doing this, or you want to use it in furtherance of a business, this is what the video is for. All right. So, they told me I got to do the exemption. So, and he was saying that, and he's like, you've worked awful hard for your pilot certificates. You wouldn't want to put them at risk. And that comment kind of took me back, and I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, if you're not a pilot and you're out flying one of these around and you get caught, for commercial use, it's up to a $10,000 fine. However, if you are a rated pilot, you can be subjected to the same $10,000 fine, but you can also, for flying this thing, you're going to see me do this a lot today, just to keep this into perspective for anybody in the government that's out there watching, this is what we're talking about. You can have your certificates put in jeopardy. Now, he didn't say, they can be suspended, revoked. He just said your certificates can be put in jeopardy by flying that for commercial use without the exemption. So obviously, it's not been tested in court yet, but I can assure you, I'm not going to be the first one to try it. So, if some of you guys you've got an aviation attorney buddy and you're feeling spunky to have at it, try to set the precedent for the rest of us. So that would be great. But so I decided after talking to the different FAA people, and let me say it, the FAA people were all super helpful. You're going to hear me rant a lot about what's going on with this. It's more about the situation. Their hands are tied as far as what they're allowed to do. They can't just make up stuff. They have to go by the regulations that are written. They can't just make it up as they go, even though that would probably make more sense in the situation we're in right now. But they have to follow the regulations, so they have to get the drone to fit into, basically the box that they've already created for all the other, balloons and airplanes and all that stuff. So we kind of get roped into that whole thing too. So their hands are pretty much tied, and like I said, I know there's a couple people working on the exemptions. In my understanding, there's only a couple people in DC that are going through all these exemptions. I'm sure they're overwhelmed. All the people that I talked to, they sent me how-to instructional things of how to go through and apply for this. I mean, super helpful. If I had any questions, so I'm not beating up on the FAA here at a kind of the ground level. Now the upper level, the guys that are in charge of the FAA, come on now. So, but all the people that I talked to in the FAA were, Charlotte Fisdo was so helpful. They were really nice, and they're like, if you find out anything else, let us know. I was like, it's so new and it's changing so much, and every exemption that's put out sets a little bit of precedent, for everybody else. So, they were like, if you hear anything new or find anything new, let us know. We'd love to hear about it. So as a good pilot, I set out to do this the right way. So I went through, and they were nice enough to send me let me say the process. For the first few people, the process would have been daunting. Pretty much attorney involved. It's a whole big deal. Basically, what I was told to do is look at the exemptions, and I'll put the link in the descriptions for where to find the exemptions. I'll put a link to all the information as far as how to apply, where to go, where to see what exemptions are pending, what have been approved, all that sort of stuff. So basically what I was told to do is go through, find an exemption that's been approved, and kind of make it your own. So I went through, found one that looked like I was, kind of what I wanted to do, which is the real estate stuff. went through and kind of made it my own. You know, changed stuff around, changed it for the altitude that I wanted to fly, the length of time, the area that I was in, my personal background, I'm a pilot, so I put that in there as well. Because you know, you kind of ask for a bunch of stuff, and they kind of give you what they can within reason. So that's what I did. So I went through, submitted everything. You know, you can do it in a few hours if you were feeling really spunky. You know, you can go ahead and just bust it out. You know, so you're submitting the whole exemption. You're submitting most of the guys that I've read through a ton of them. Most of the exemptions, they submit the owner's manual for the drone. They submit basically a kind of a made-up pilot operations manual and some other stuff about how they're going to operate it, some emergency procedures, things like that. You know, and it basically lays out, you're basically telling the FAA, here's how I'm not going to hurt other people. That's what they care about. So I went ahead and submitted all that stuff, and I'm waiting on that. How long am I going to be waiting? Well, that's another problem. We're looking at 4 to 6 months. Not even kidding. So it is February 24th today. So I'm looking best case scenario, June. Worst case scenario, who knows? So one of the first ones was Doug Trudeau out in Tucson, Arizona, that submitted. Awesome. I don't know the guy, but you know, kudos to you, man. You went out and you know did something. You got an exemption, you know, and basically set the groundwork for all this other stuff that we're trying to do. And little guys like me that are trying to do the same thing. So you definitely made our life a lot easier. So, you know, I went out and, you know, pulled up, and Doug Trudeau is one of the first guys, like I said, that applied for an exemption. I think he originally applied back in July of last year, July of 2014. And he was just approved in January. I have his exemption pulled up here just for reference. So he applied in July of 2014. And let's see, I can't find the approved date on here quickly, but I think it was approved in December or January. So it took him a good 6 months, and he was one of the first guys to do it. There have been some video companies and stuff that had done it, you know, for closed set videoing and stuff, but he was really the first guy that kind of went out there and I want to do this for real estate or some other kind of, you know, surveying, or, you know, there's been, as of right now, as of when I looked a little bit ago, there have been 33 exemptions granted. When I looked mid-January, so a month ago, there have been 16 granted. So we've pretty much doubled the amount in a month. So it took them, you know, 6-7 months to get the first 16 granted, and now they've granted 16 in a month. The last time I looked, there were 200 to 300 exemptions that have been applied for. So you can see, even at that pace, we're looking at quite a while. So I'm hoping there's going to be something in there that's going to speed that process up. So I was told minimum of 4 to 6 months. So, you know, I went ahead, submitted my paperwork, and so now I've got this great drone that I'm flying around my house for fun. So with that being said, you know, I'll kind of walk you through about what the exemption means and you know, what you can do with it. So, and for commercial use, you know, like I said, fly it around your house, hobby use, do whatever you want. Commercial use, in furtherance of a business, you're trying to make money with it, you have to apply for the exemption. So when applying for the exemption, and the exemption, it's a Section 333 exemption. It's basically a petition that you're putting in to exclude yourself or your operations from certain federal aviation regulations. So I'm going to go down through, and I'll kind of go through some of the regulations that we want to be exempt from, and then I'm going to go through the exemptions that FAA granted. So, and I've got this pulled up here. So, you know, they're trying to get out of the, you know, being a private pilot in order to fly it. You know, 91.7, which is, you know, it being in an airworthy condition. You know, I'm not really sure how you determine if it's an airworthy condition other than is it working. It's not like we can take it apart and look inside of it. You know, 91.103, be familiar with runway links at airports of intended use. We're not flying them at airports. So, you know, these are FAA regulations that, you know, you say I'm not going to be able to comply with, or they don't apply to the situation that I'm in. So, you know, a whole bunch of them here. Most of them, you know, N number, you know, trying to get out, put an N number on it. It's requiring a 6-month or a 6-inch N number. So there's a whole bunch of things here. You know, it's, you know, trying to get out of, you know, keeping a record, basically the logbook for it. Some of that stuff makes sense. And I understand, keep in mind, I understand the need for regulation, and when it comes to commercial use, I understand the need for safety as a pilot. It's super important to me. But we're going to get into what the FAA has granted as far as exemptions. And I'm going to try to stay calm, but it's not going to work. I'm telling you right now. The first time I read these, I almost fell over. And the first time somebody told them to me, I thought they were joking. I was like, am I being punked? What's going on here? I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? So we'll go down through and talk about the exemptions here. And some of the other stuff that this person applied for, he wanted to keep it under 300 feet. I actually changed that in mine. You can use them up to 400 feet, so I put 400 feet in mine. The software limits you to 400 feet with the DJIs, so I did that as well. He had 3 to 7 minutes flight time. You get about 30 minutes out of these, so I put, I think, 15 to 20 minutes. Give myself plenty of window in there, because you don't want to run it out of battery and you have to come back all the time. So visual line of sight, things like that. So all right, so I'm gonna scroll down here, and I'm gonna take you through what it takes to be a UAS pilot or a drone pilot for commercial use. So I'm a commercial pilot. I thought, no big deal, right? So I'm going down to the FAA decision portion. All right, you guys ready for this? Hopefully you have a drink in hand, you're relaxed, you do a little yoga, you're chilled out, you found your chi. All right, here we go. So UAV may not be flown faster than indicated airspeed of 30 knots. So, 33, 34 miles an hour. I don't even know if it'll go that fast, but not a big deal, right? I don't know how indicated airspeed. I'm guessing what I see on my phone when I'm flying it. And if I don't have my phone up there, I guess I don't know how I determine how fast it's going. But anyway, all right. So, and this person applied for a maximum altitude of 300 feet, which was granted. So, they granted no more than 300 feet AGL, which is above ground, which makes sense. So, all right. So, UA must be operated within visual line of sight of the pilot in command at all times. Okay, I mean that makes sense. This requires the pilot in command to be able to use human vision unaided by any device other than corrective lenses on the FAA issued airman medical certificate. So I did say medical certificate. Keep that in mind. All right. So here's where it gets all kinds of stupid. So like I said, the ground level guys at the FAA are doing the best they can with what they have to work with. But I mean, somebody's got to freaking do something. This is ridiculous. All right. So like I said, here's where it just gets all kinds of stupid. All right. So now I've went out and purchased this little guy. This 2-pound UAS or drone. Got a little camera hanging on the bottom of it. Pretty fancy. I fly, big airplanes around, but I got my exemption for this, so I applied for my exemption. Let's just say I got it. So the FAA was, they christened me and said I can go fly this thing. So now what do I need to do? So I can't go faster than 30 knots. Makes sense. I got to keep it in line of sight. It can be challenging sometimes. It's white. Maybe if I painted a different color, it might be easier. Okay, no big deal. All right. So let's see. What's this next one? All operations must utilize a visual observer. Visual observer. UA must be operated within visual line of sight of the visual observer at all times. Visual observer may be used to satisfy visual line of sight requirement as long as PIC always maintains visual line of sight capability. Visual observer and PIC must communicate verbally at all times. The PIC must be designated before the flight and cannot transfer his or her controls during the flight. PIC must ensure that the visual observer can perform the functions as prescribed in these documents. All right. I can go out and get in a twin-engine airplane. I can stuff 6 people in it. They can pay me money. I can fly in Miami. I, however, cannot go out in somebody's yard, take this thing off, take a picture of their house without having my crew in place. My crew is a person flying it who cannot transfer the controls, and a visual observer who has to watch me fly it. Because apparently I'm doing something else than actually watching out and flying this thing. I can fly a single, I can fly a twin-engine airplane with 6 people on it to Miami all by myself. No big deal. Can't fly this by myself. All right. So we're going out through a few other things here. So you must operate it per the operating documents. Makes sense. Prior to each flight, the PIC must inspect the UAS to ensure conditions safe for flight. Make sure pieces aren't falling off. That kind of makes sense. I mean, I'm not a UAS mechanic, but I guess I could see if stuff's falling off of it. So, any maintenance alterations that affect the UAS operation or flight characteristics, or replacement of critical flight component must undergo functional flight test. So you put a new prop on it, and you fly it around and make sure it's not going to break off. I guess that's, what else are you going to do? So the PIC who conducts a functional flight test must make an entry in the aircraft records. Aircraft records. So now I have a logbook for this. So let's go through the list real quick again. So now I've got somebody flying it. I've got somebody watching somebody fly it. And I also have a logbook for this. Okay. Let's keep this list going. All right. So we do a pre-flight inspection. Make sure nothing's falling off of it. Makes perfect sense to me. All right. Maintenance, carry out maintenance inspections. Manufacturers, you must comply with manufacturer safety bulletins. So I'm assuming it doesn't specify, but I'm assuming that would be, if you had software updates, things like that. No big deal. It makes sense. So any corrective actions you must make, you've got your aircraft logbook, so you must make an entry in the logbook now for corrective actions that you've taken with any discrepancies you find. So I don't know if the sticker comes off, if you put a new one on, you got to do that. I'm not sure if I take out the SD card, if I have to do an entry on that. I'm not really sure on that one. All right. So I mentioned that the visual observer is where it started to get all kinds of stupid. So now we've just went clear to a whole another level. So all you folks out there that are watching this that are not pilots, I have some bad news for you. Because now your flight crew to fly your drone to take a picture of somebody's house just got a little bit bigger. So here we go. UAS operations must be conducted by a PIC, pilot in command, possessing at least a private pilot certificate. You heard me right. You must be a private pilot to fly this thing for money. All right. So I'm a private pilot. Let's say I was a pilot back in the 80s. I haven't flown in a long time. Pilot certificates don't expire. Like a driver's license expires after 10 years or whatever. Pilot certificates are always good. Once you've earned it, you've earned it. Now you have to do recurrency stuff every 2 years. You have to do a flight review. But once you've earned it, you're good to go. So, I would say as long as it would make sense, even if as crazy as it seems about being a pilot to fly this thing, as long as somebody has been a pilot, they've had that training. It's not like it leaves you. It might get a little fuzzy, but so let's keep reading though. All right, at least a private pilot certificate, which I think is ridiculous. But then it goes to the next line. And at least a third-class medical. Okay. Now, the aviation guys that are watching this and girls are going to understand what I'm talking about. You non-aviation people probably won't understand what I'm talking about, but I'm going to rant about it anyway. Okay, so keep in mind, I'm going to bring this up a lot. This is water flying. So I have to have a third-class medical to fly this. Now, those of you who are familiar with Sport Pilot Certificate, Sport Pilot Certificate is a certificate where you can fly smaller aircraft, 2-passenger aircraft. There's a limitation on horsepower, speed, and weight, but you can put yourself and another person in it and fly it around. And you don't have to have a medical. They consider the driver's license sufficient for a medical. So if you have a valid driver's license, you can use that in lieu of a medical. Not to fly this, though. If you're going to be flying this bad boy, you're going to have a third-class medical. That's the way it's going to be. That's perfect. All right. So now I've got my private pilot certificate. I've got my third-class medical, but I haven't flown in a couple years. I'm like, it's just got a lot of stuff going on, but surely I can fly this drone. The PIC must also meet the flight review requirements of 6156 in an aircraft which the PIC is rated on his or her pilot certificate. So now, once again, to fly this, I'm a private pilot, at least the third class medical, and I've had a flight review in an aircraft that I'm certified in. To fly this, I can't even fly by myself. I got to have somebody watching. I can fly an airplane by myself, not this one. Okay. All right. So now I've got all that done. I'm ready to go. I mean, I'm a private pilot. I went out and spent $7,000 to get my private pilot certificate so I can fly my UAV and take pictures. And, you know, my buddy's going to watch me take pictures. You know, he's going to stand beside me. I'm ready to go. Let's do this. Let's make some money taking pictures of stuff. So I get to the next line here. The PIC must have accumulated and logged in a manner consistent with 6151 of the FARs a minimum of 25 hours total time in a U.S. rotorcraft, including at least 10 hours logged as a UAS pilot in a multi-rotor UAS. All right, so now we've determined that even though I'm a pilot, and take me for instance, I've got 4,500 hours. I've flown, I don't know, probably 3 dozen different kinds of aircraft. I can't fly this freaking plastic thing until I have 25 hours. 25 hours, that's 50 recharges. That's 50 recharges on this thing. I mean, if I fly it an hour a day, it's going to take me a month to be able to fly this thing. Are you serious right now? 10 hours, so even if I had 100 hours in a different one of these deals, I got to have 10 hours in a multi one, because obviously that's important. All right, so I've done that, and I've logged the required time, because obviously you must log it. So now I've got my 25 hours in my my UAS there. All right, so surely that's got to be the end of the stupidness. PIC must have accumulated and logged in a manner consistent with 6151 a minimum of 5 hours in the make and model of the UAS. 5 hours make and model time may be included in the 10 hours of multi-rotor time prescribed above. PIC must accomplish 3 takeoffs and landings in the preceding 90 days. You guys that are familiar with DJI, this thing will take off and land itself. So you can set in a GPS course, it'll take off, fly around, and come back and land itself. But in order to fly it for commercial purposes, you must have, and you're going to have to log it because you got to be able to prove it, 3 takeoffs and landings in this thing. So you've got 25 hours in this thing, or 25 hours total in the UAS. It doesn't have to be in this one, just 10 hours in this one. Can you see I'm a little frustrated? 3 of which are 3 takeoffs and landings in the last 90 days in this. Okay, so we've got to be ready to fly this thing now. All right, so let's look down and see if anything else here is gonna. Because surely we gotta be ready to fly. So you can't operate within 5 miles of an airport. Makes sense. You know, basically says have things in place for an emergency procedure. So let's go through the whole list of what we've done here. So we've applied for the exemption. We've waited, say, 6 months. We've got our exemption. So we realized that now we have to have a flight crew. So I'm not a pilot, so I hired a private pilot. I've got a visual observer. I guess I could be the visual observer. So either way, you got a crew, right? You got 2 people, that's crew. So I've got a crew. So we're ready to go. So my private pilot, he has went out and he has spent 2 months flying this thing because he can't fly it every day. He's got other stuff going on. So he flies this thing, you know, half-hour a day for 2 months. So now he's officially ready to go in that. He's got his 3 takeoffs and landings in 90 days. He's got his 25 hours of time in his UAS, 10 of which is in a multi. So, you know, he's spent a couple months doing that. So he's pretty well ready to go with that. He's got his 3rd class medical, which, you know, you got to have the 3rd class medical, which makes a lot of sense, you know. So, you know, he's got his flight review in. So we're ready to go. I think, you know, we're pretty much ready to go with this. We'll see if there's anything else that might affect us here. What's this one? The operator must obtain an air traffic organization issued certificate of waiver or authorization prior to conducting any operations under this grant of exemption. The COA, or certificate of authorization, will also require the operator to request a notice to airmen, or NOTAM, not more than 72 hours in advance, but not less than 48 hours prior to operation. Okay. I'm limited in this exemption to 300 feet. It can't go faster than 30 knots per the exemption. I've got a pilot flying it who's actually a pilot. He's got 25 hours minimum in a UAS, 10 of which is in this thing. He's got a third-class medical, a flight review. He's got an observer not using binoculars to watch it. 2 people are watching this. And you still have to let the FAA know, and they still have to issue you a certificate of authorization or a waiver to be able to fly this thing. The stupidity that is wrapped up in this whole situation right now is mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Then you have to apply for a NOTAM. So that means for all of us pilots, every time you pull up your iPad and look at the map on there, you're going to see 500 NOTAMs of stupid little UASs flying around because they have to have NOTAMs. Okay. So, you also have to put an N number on it, by the way. But it only has to be as large as practical, so that's okay, I guess. All right, so we're good to go. So we know that FAA, they've issued this. We got to get them to okay each flight. We have to apply at least 2 days in advance. Hopefully the weather will be nice then. If not, you'll reapply 2 days in advance. Kind of go from there. So here was the last thing that I read. So at this point, I was, as you can tell, even redoing this, I was frustrated. So as a pilot, one of the big things that we're all about is safety. It's important to us. We train a lot for safety. Accidents do happen, but we really push hard to learn as much as we can and be the best we can, right? So, it says any accident, incident, or flight operation that transgresses the lateral or vertical boundaries of the operational area as defined by the applicable COA or Certificate of Authorization must be reported to the FAA's UAS Integration Office within 24 hours. So I'm not sure what defines incident or accident. My guess is if I knock this thing over and the props hit the ground, is that an incident? I have no idea, but I got to report it apparently. The thing that makes me spasm is the next line. Accidents must be reported to the National Transportation Safety Board per instructions on the NTSB website. Okay. So I don't know whether they're intending to use the things that in an airplane specify incident and accident, or if it's I crash this thing and it's totaled, does that constitute an accident? If it's an airplane, it does. So does that mean that if I crash this thing, or if it falls out of the sky, one of the props quits working, it falls out of the sky, I'm reporting this to the NTSB as an accident? Are you kidding me? It's a freaking 2-pound plastic drone, and I have to report this to the NTSB. Do you guys not see the stupidity in this? It is absolutely, it's so frustrating. And so now as a pilot, I'm looking back. So on every insurance certificate that I fill out as a pilot for a new aircraft, they ask me, do I have any incidents or accidents? So am I going to have to put that I have an accident if this thing falls out of the sky, or if I crash into a tree? I'm going to put on there that I have an accident now on my record because I crashed a drone, a UAS. It's so frustrating. So that's kind of the end of the exemption. So basically, the situation, like I said, the FAA is doing the best they can at the lower level. At the upper level, I have no holds barred. Get to work on this. This is ridiculous. You got caught by an industry that popped up out of nowhere. I understand that. But it's been out for a few years now. And somebody should have had the foresight to say, hey, maybe people are going to start utilizing this and doing something. Maybe we should get in front of this. But nobody did. So now we're in this position where we've got hundreds of people across the country flying these things illegally for business, flying them into towards airplanes. Luckily, we haven't had an accident that I know of yet. And when you do officially get an exemption, you really can't hardly do it because you have to have a pilot. I'm lucky enough that I am a pilot, but you have to have a private pilot. So if you don't know a private pilot, I'm not sure what you do. They have to have 25 hours. So even if you find a buddy that's got this, he's got to go fly it around for 2 months before he can even use it. Then you got to stand there and watch him do it. He's got to have his medical, come on, guys. I mean, it's February 2015. This isn't rocket science. This isn't, I mean, model aircraft have been out for years. You know, they've been flying model aircraft for years. Now you get one that somebody sticks a camera on and you don't know what to do with it. I mean, seriously. You know, let's get on this. Let's do something about this. I hope somebody sees this video and, you know, I hope it gets some airtime. You know, share this video, put it out there. I know it's long, but let's get some traction on this. And I think if we can get some traction on this, we can really get some people, you know, moving forward and doing something about this, so we can actually take advantage of these things. I mean, there's so many great opportunities to be able to utilize this thing, and we just can't do it. And, you know, it's because the FAA is tied, which, you know, ties us down. So, you know, share this, like this video, do whatever you can to push this. Make your own videos. I don't care what you do. Write your congressman. Call the FAA. You know, if you're, you know, write notes to or letters to the editor. I mean, whatever you can do, you know, call AOPA or EAA, you know, and let's start pushing to get something out there to get this fixed. You know, there is no reason that we should have all these regulations to oversee, you know, a 2-pound little plastic thing that I want to go fly in my yard and take pictures of people's houses. So, all right, guys, thanks for listening to the rant. Sorry it was so long, but this is, you know, something I'm very passionate about. As far as, you know, a new industry, and I think it's important that we all kind of band together, and pilots are not, you know, if you're flying these things, you're basically a pilot too, so, you know, let's all kind of band together and see if we can't get something done with this that makes more sense. And I appreciate it, guys. Be safe out there.